Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show will revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Moosie Drier. She was the youngest female star to top the Billboard charts with several #1 hits, including I Think We're Alone Now.
Trying to get away into the night, and then you put your arms around me and we tumble to the ground, and then you say, I think we're alone now. Doesn't seem to be anyone around.
She's a member of the California Music Hall of Fame. She's been the voice of Judy Jetson. She was awarded the inaugural Icon Award at the Josie Awards. She's launched the platform Let's Zen, My Friend. Please help us welcome Tiffany. Tiffany, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, Tiffany. I want to start off with, let's go way back. So you grew up in Los Angeles or just outside of LA. You started singing when you were really young, and I read that one of the first songs you sang was Delta Dawn. Is that Helen Reddy?
It was Tanya Tucker, actually.
Oh, Tanya
Yeah.
Tucker sang that for. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And who were your influences when you were a youngster?
Well, I started singing around the house when I was like 2 years old, believe it or not, listening to commercials. I just would listen to commercials and then sing, whatever I heard, jingles, whatever. And my mom was like, okay. There's no one musical in my family at all, but it was just my thing. So my mom thought it was cute, And then as I got to be 3, 4, and 5, I was always listening to the radio, learning songs, already just taking it upon myself to kind of, have my favorite songs that my family played all the time. And I'd know some of the lyrics, but I had a Fisher Price. So I used to always ask my mom to record me, and I'd sing in the little thing. And then I actually have it on an album called Mimi's Kitchen, where I have the actual, like, if you want to see demos
so
or
cool.
recording. And I'm all, Mama, play it back, play it back. So I was always singing. But, early on, I was mostly country music because that's what was played in my house. So I loved Loretta Lynn and Tammy Wynette, Tanya Tucker, of course, Patsy Cline. So that was my early start. I wanted to be like my older cousin who was into dancing. And, again, I was always performing for the family in front of the TV and singing and dancing. So my mom thought, well, maybe I'll just get her into dance school and that'll, suffice. But that just kind of ramped it up for me because I loved being on stage, and I still didn't stop, singing. So when my mom married my stepfather, literally he was like, she sings a lot, and like she has an okay voice, a good voice. But it's one thing to sing in front of family and friends, and when she wants to, it's another in front of people she doesn't even know. So he took me to the fair. We, as a family, we used to go to the fair. And we used to go to like what they used to call hoedowns.
Mhm.
And we'd watch the bands and go on the carnival rides and, just make a day of it. So my dad paid the band $20 that day to call me up and sing Delta Dawn. And so I got up. I mean, they said, we have a little girl out there. Her name's Tiffany Renee, which is my first and middle name. We're inviting her to come onto the stage and sing a song with us. And I just hopped right up there. So that's when my stepdad was like, okay, I guess we have something here. But again, no one knowing anything about how to break into Hollywood, what that was about. He just started asking bands, look, my daughter wants to sing, Well, you got to get headshots. You got to get demos. Go down to this person, talk to this person. Well, if you want to come, we're playing here next weekend. She can hop up on stage. So that quickly led to my mom making costumes. And, then we started to turn into the Hollywood family a little bit. And I did demos, and, it just led from one thing to another. And that, ended up with me having my first record deal at 14.
So you were seen by Hoyt Axton. I mean,
Yeah.
big country star. He was, the father in Gremlins. He was great in that. So he spotted you and helped your career. Can you talk about him a little bit and what he was like?
Well, there was my dad, my stepdad, Dan, and he didn't really know what to do. I mean, again, bands were giving him advice, go over here, maybe they'll let you gig with them, all of that kind of stuff. So he was a fan of Hoyt Axton, and Hoyt would come into Los Angeles quite often and play, in Vegas. He played the Palomino Club, played the Cowboy in
Mhm.
Anaheim. And my dad just kind of would stand there backstage and with my demo, my first demo, and say, to anybody in the crew, "Hey, can I get this into Hoyt's hands? Or, can I get this in? And basically, he just pretty much beat them down because he was always there. When he knew Hoyt was in town, he would run down there, and it was a lot of no's in the beginning. No, 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 no. So finally one day Hoyt walked by and he goes, "I've heard about you. You're the guy with the daughter that wants to sing. All right, I got a little time. Get on the bus." And he did. He played my demo and he was like, "Whoa, this girl sounds like she's 30. How old is she? She's 12?" My dad was like, "Yeah, she's 12 and she's been gigging." And he goes, "Well, bring her down here tomorrow and let's have her get up on stage and I want to see her sing live." So that happened, and he quickly became like Uncle Hoyt to me.
Wow.
And his mom was in Nashville, May Axton. She was my first manager. They all came through Hoyt. He was like, "Look, you need to go to Nashville. My mom can help you. She can manage Tiffany and get you into the right hands." And we did that. We flew into Nashville a couple different times. My mom was pregnant at the time, so we had to stay in Los Angeles. My dad had a company, he was construction, so we weren't relocating, but we went back and forth for quite a while. And I got on a lot of the talk shows and
Huh.
worked with a lot of people, but the content of the material at 12 was really hard to find something that
Mhm.
fit, country radio. So I was advised, "Wow, you're amazing, your voice and your showmanship, but come back when you're older."
Right. Well, when you started singing, you were playing in bars and places where if you weren't performing, you probably wouldn't be even allowed in. Was it fun? And
It was a lot of fun. I didn't know any different. I
mm,
just wanted to sing.
yeah.
So, I mean, being in a bar environment, it wasn't a big deal. I was on the stage and then I was, rushed out the back door. But and that quickly became, the obstacle. It was like people love her. They love her voice and she's just talented, but who's gonna, she can't even stay to sign autographs or anything like
Right.
that. So I did my first fanfare with May Axton here in Nashville when I live in Nashville now. And again, it went really, really well. We sold a lot of demos. I had my headshots, all of that. But to really get a label to sign me was just not going to happen. We really tried.
So
Interesting.
that's what. So they didn't want to sign you for country. So that's what prompted you
They
to.
just didn't want to sign me for country. I mean, country music at that time was really heavily driven with bar songs and divorce songs and, getting back on your feet songs. And I
Yeah.
hadn't had any of that at that time. So, it was really material and how to promote that. So, again, I was told, "Come back when you're 18, we can do something." So I circled back around to Los Angeles. We kept doing demos. We just kept going because I wanted to. By that time, it was, something I love singing. And, my parents were like, "Well, we'll go back to LA and we'll try with other producers." And I was quickly finding other styles of music
So you're the one
because,
that made the decision to switch genres of music.
well, I wanted to go rock actually.
Mm,
So I had found Stevie Nicks by that time,
yeah.
and Ann Wilson from Heart. I love Joplin. Again, there's that older cousin who I used to go in her room on the weekend. She used to go visit her dad. So I had her room to myself. Her mother was my favorite auntie. And I was, told, "Don't scratch her vinyls,
Uh-huh.
don't mess with anything." But I used to listen to music on her waterbed
Hmm.
and read all the liner notes from the vinyls for like Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Stevie Nicks. And And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to do more rock stuff. And of course, my friends were already kind of guiding towards that a little
Mhm.
bit. So my mom was really cool. She said, well, we could put some Fleetwood Mac into your set. So I was allowed to do some more Fleetwood Mac stuff as well as the country. And in country, I had kind of found Emmylou Harris, Lacey J. Dalton. So a little bit more kind of rocker country, very strong women. Um, so I was changing my set already. And then that's when we were actually in a studio in Burbank, California, recording another demo that was a little in the middle. And that's where I met George Dobin, who said, I don't know anything about country. I'm not interested in country on any level or rock music. You're way too young for rock music, but I'm definitely interested in pop. So,
Oh, cool.
that was
That
the beginning of all of it.
that's how it happened. So you went on Ed McMahon's Star Search, and
Yes,
there's still clips on YouTube, by the way, for people to go see. And you were
there are. I just
incredible.
watched one the other
Did
day.
you? What? Well, then let me stop then for a second. Then so. I mean, it's human nature. Do you read the comments? And do you reply to them on when you watch yourself on YouTube or something?
I do read the comments. I sometimes reply.
Yeah, okay,
Uh,
cool. I was wondering.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially something like Star Search, I can tell you why I lost. That was again my family not knowing anything about the business. And someone had said, oh no, she needs to work with a choreographer. She needs stage presence. She's got the voice, but she needs stage presence. And she needs a costume. So I was in a tuxedo, which I think I look like a stuffed penguin, but that's me. That was not my style at all, but you do what you do. I was 12. And I worked with a choreographer at the time who, again, to each his own. But for me, I'm much more of a live performer connecting with people. And this was
Yeah.
all about, okay, it's very theatrical. You're going to see the cameras and you're going to connect with the camera. And then you're going to be very small and timid. And the song builds. And then all of a sudden, you're going to come alive on the stage and then you're going to perform. And I was like, I hate this. I hate all
Yeah.
of this. And the girl who performed, as my competition, she was just cute with a little pink bow, in her hair, and she just came out and skipped around, and she was just herself.
You're
And
yeah.
I remember watching her perform, going, I'm not going to win this because this was like a performance rather than me being myself.
Yeah, sounds like you were given some bad advice because you're a singer and that's what you're there to do. You're not there,
Yeah.
and the last thing a 12-year-old needs is to be feeling uncomfortable and out of their element, like, or
Yeah.
even thinking about, oh, this is when the camera's going to do this and this is my performance.
I was in my head. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously it was a great experience because I've done, musical theater and I've done a lot of different things. So, you learn,
Yeah.
but that was so new to me that I was like, whoa. And I literally watched her and went, she's gonna win. And she did, and I cried, of course. But it was really just the beginning for me because I think that everything that you try that maybe fails, you get a better sense of who you are.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it didn't deter me from stopping to sing by
Yeah.
any means.
And Ed McMahon was no help, I know, I'm just kidding. No. I never knew if that was more of his like Dean Martin, more of his
A stick. Yeah.
persona, or he was actually, whatever. But who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as I'm very lucky as a child star. I actually never had any weirdness. I know a lot of my friends
That's
did, and
great.
they've had so I got really lucky. I had other battles to fight with my own family, but I'm really lucky that I've never had
Mhm.
any kind of crazy or I did do some shows with Jerry Lee Lewis and Mickey Gilley and
Hmm.
and Little Richard, and everybody again was very appropriate. But I mean, they're like the outlaws, the
Right.
guys,
Yes.
legends, if you will. And
Right.
so, I mean, I was performing with these guys when I was 10 years old. And I just remember feeling like there's something special about these people.
Did you know who they
Yeah.
were when you were performing with them? Did you know who those?
I, oh, 100%. But I don't think I knew the word legendary
Okay.
or anything like that. I did know who they were, and I was a fan.
Hmm.
Like little Richard sat on the piano. He's like, "Girl, you gotta give it your all," And I was like, I was, now I look back at that. I started to write my memoir, and just started to go through old photo albums that my family have collected for me over the years. And going back in those pictures, to be honest with you, I forget about this stuff.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, how cool is that? So full circle now, I really do appreciate. I get a chuckle out of it. I see pictures of myself, and I'm just enjoying it. But I don't think I'm aware of the legends that I was around at that time.
Amazing. That's real.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Well,
you
yeah.
got little Richard saying, "No, no, do it, shout it out or
Yeah,
whatever."
girl,
Like that
singing. He was
is
like playing piano and having a
one
guitar.
in a billion. Hey, you mind, Jonathan? I'm sorry. I have one question but this is not a planned question. When you were saying that you were announced as Tiffany Renee, what's the origin behind going with just Tiffany? Was it a Madonna influence thing back then? Were a lot of people doing that, or what?
Well, actually, I had two dads. I had a stepdad and a real father, my real birth father. So I couldn't decide on names. When
Mhm.
I got the record deal, they wanted Tiffany Williams, and that was my stepfather's name. And I just didn't really feel comfortable with that because my both dads were in my life. And then Tiffany Darwish was definitely not catchy. And I was going by Tiffany Renee, which is my first and middle name for a
Uh-huh.
long time. It was Tiffany Renee, loved that country music. And I'm the one who kind of just said, well, what about Tiffany? Because then I don't have to choose. And yes, Madonna was already, there. You
Yeah.
had Cher already, all these
Hmm.
one-namers. And they went, all right. And I was like,
It's
okay, simple.
I
Thank you.
totally admire that. You didn't want to offend one father figure or another, and that was really noble of you to do.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, I
well,
mean, well, my real dad, I had a great relationship with him. He was very loving, but he really didn't want me to be in the music industry
mhm.
because he was really worried that I'd get my heart broken or, all the stuff that comes with. And he thought
Right.
I was very young, but he didn't stop me. It wasn't, it wasn't his first pick for me.
No.
Whereas my stepfather was the one who was rooting for me and helping me make connections and doing the work, if you will. So, I did feel torn between the two of
Yeah.
them.
Sure.
And I mean, I don't know. No, everybody just called me Tiffany anyway,
Yeah,
so it
it
made
worked.
sense.
It
Well,
works. Yeah.
yes. I want to talk to you about your debut album because I was reading this. You recorded 40 songs for that album to choose from.
I did, yeah. The first album we recorded for over a year. So we
Wow.
had
Wow.
quite a bit of material.
Did you have any
And
say in
then
choosing which songs went on the
I
album or
I
no?
did. In the first album, I did. The second album, not so much. And it was a little more rushed because, of course, then you're following that success and
Right.
demand. But the first album, no, I really did. I think We're Alone Now wasn't something I wanted to initially record because I didn't think it showed my vocals. I was worried that it was going to be too dance and it wasn't going to be like the rocker or the pop, big pop ballads that show my capability as a singer. So, I kind of had to be eased into that song. I played it for my friends and they were dancing around the room and loving it. And I thought, okay, well, it makes people feel good. And it still does today. And I'm grateful. Could
Did
Have Been was a song that I fell in love with immediately and definitely wanted to record that. The label didn't want us to record that. They thought it was too adult for me. And I was like, have you ever seen somebody my age in love for
right.
the very first time or heartbroken for the very first time? I mean, it's like the dynamics here. So I think Could Have Been works for us. And we went in, we did it. It's a one take vocal actually on that
Oh, wow.
record. And it made the cut. So we fought hard for that. And that's really my favorite
It,
song to perform even to this day.
Tommy James on here like a long time ago. Actually, I think we asked him about your version. Did you ever hear from him
Oh
about
yeah,
it?
I've met Tommy many times. He's always really lovely.
It's always so interesting to hear how other artists interpret your music.
Billy Idol was doing, Moni Moni, and Tiffany was doing I Think We're Alone Now.
It was amazing. As a matter of fact, when those two records came out, they came out the same week, went up the charts week after week like they were holding hands. In the end, both of them went #1. I am so flattered when other artists do our material.
Well, all right, so the album came out, and the first song released, which was Danny, which I read didn't chart. So how was it decided that you would start doing tours of shopping malls to promote it? Because you were the first one I remember doing that. And what were your thoughts about it at the time?
I thought it made the most sense because that's where I was hanging out anyway. We tried clubs in New York. I would go in, I would do my set, I'd do my little, dance, and I'd do all of that, and people would love the music, and then I couldn't hang out in the club. So again, I couldn't sit down, I couldn't sign autographs, I couldn't sell product, I couldn't mingle, I couldn't do any of that. And quickly that was an obstacle. So I almost lost my record deal because basically the label was saying, we don't know how to promote this. We just don't know what to do with this. We've tried, people do like the music, but she's just so young. There's no place for her. And that's when my A&R guy was walking the mall, and he thought, they do fashion shows, they do hair shows, why not do music? And when I was asked to get up and, what do I think about it? Do I want to do that to promote the music? It totally made sense to me. I was like, go to the mall, I'm there already. That's what we do. We get together, my girlfriends and I, and we would have like $10 between all three of us, have an Orange Julius, walk around, look at guys, go to the record shop. I mean, just make a day out of it, It was a place that was, our place to hang in the 80s. So it just felt natural and organic.
So when you first started doing these malls, like, did people know who you were when you started singing?
Not really. No, I build. I mean, it definitely was a big build. The first couple malls, I'd get off out of school around 1 o'clock on a Friday, so a little earlier, get on a plane, go out to, we first did some local places. So I think it was San Francisco. I think it was like, Barstow, California, places like that were within a couple of hours to get there. And then that night we would set up, so it'd be a Friday night. And then I would perform Saturday and Sunday. I do 3 shows a day. So the first night was getting there, looking over the mall, getting sorted, putting up the stage, putting our little speakers up there and just kind of getting a vibe. Usually there'd be a label rep and, and I would be totally scoping out like stores like Charlotte Russe and, and the Orange Julius stand, and the arcade. Because it was really, I would get up and I would sing at like 11 o'clock. And there might be people there, there might not be people there. A lot of people sat down because there was always chairs and they'd be resting. And then all of a sudden I'd get up and start singing and they'd be like so annoyed. They're like, what is this loud? Or a lot of like the stores weren't told before that there was going to be a stage in front of their store. So, you had some people going, I don't want this here. This is blocking traffic to my store. This is a deterrent. But it never stopped me from getting on stage. I was like, the adults will work this out. I'm here to do some, some rock and rolling and having a good time. And then, yes, radio from there, took it from there. It started to get promoted. The single started spinning. As you mentioned before, Danny Nobody Wins.
How long did it take while doing the mall tours to start saying that, hey, this is working, this is driving sales?
Well, Danny Nobody Wins was the first single and it didn't do very well at all. And it was my manager actually who switched it. The label didn't really want to do that. And he had some connections with radio and he just went in and said, let me do me a favor. Just put this on. Give it some spins, see how it goes. And then, everything, the board was lighting up with, we love that song. And then they used to do like the battles, call in for your favorite one. And I was winning all of that. So he kind of went back and said, we're switching the singles. That's it. We've got her on the mall tour now. We're switching the singles. I've got radio now who's wanting it, and there's a buzz and creating. So it again was very organic. It was by fans. I mean, it really was by fans calling in, liking the song.
Yeah.
And then slowly the mall became,
Sure.
security guards, a couple hundred people, and then a couple 100,000 people, and then you couldn't get into the mall parking lot. And then that was kind of a wonderful problem to have, but that also was very sad for me because it was like there was such a uniqueness to being at the mall. There was just really a very hands-on, intimate experience. It was nice that I had to now go into big venues because, it was time. But I don't know, there was just something really cool about the mall tour. Again, it was a kid living her dreams, connecting with other kids. In the beginning, I used to be able to go have pizza, and then I'd be like,
Right.
"Oh my gosh, I got to go back and sing!" It was a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends.
Yeah, but in between that time though, when you started and then right in that area where you needed security, but you were still playing malls, that's brilliant. Cause like
Yeah.
your fans are like, she's coming to us,
Yes.
like she's coming to our, who doesn't go to a mall at that,
Yeah, no,
and
it was
then
the place to be.
yeah, no, that's perfect. So let me ask you this. Do you remember the moment you first heard yourself on the radio?
I do. I was in my mom's car, which was, like this, it was, I don't even know what it was. It was just primered. It wasn't even painted. And it was very loud. I was like, "Wah." And I remember over the, "Wah," we were going to the grocery store, and I heard dun 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 dun, dun, and I thought at first, "Eh, is that me? I think that's me. That's the beginning of the song. I'm pretty sure." So I made my mom pull over. So, because then the car would be more quiet. Then we were literally going to the grocery store in Norwalk, California, and my song was on. And I was like, this is me. This is me in my hometown listening to my single. That is very cool. And my mom was
Yeah.
excited for me as well. We kind of like, we're like, oh my gosh, took it in a bit. And that was really cool. I mean, the same thing. I was doing my chores when my manager called and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm doing my chores. I'm doing, I just did my homework and now I'm doing all my chores." He goes, "Yeah, you're not gonna have to do chores ever again in your life," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Yeah, your single just went number one. You have a
Wow.
number one single in the country." And I was like, "Oh, that's really, and I was like, I didn't really know what that meant. I mean, I did, but not really. And I remember just telling him, yeah, but I need to get off the phone because my mom's gonna be home and I still have to do my chores." So
Yeah. I would have said something differently. I mean, don't change. Okay, when you're done with your chores, we'll talk about your number one hit. Like, don't go, oh, you don't need to do that anymore, because then that's where people's heads get,
Get in trouble.
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I
I,
mean,
I
yeah.
just want to jump around a second since we're talking about the malls. I have to ask this because you later did an episode of How I Met Your Mother. You had already seen them do the Robin Sparkles thing, character who sang in the
Right.
malls. When that episode came out, had you been aware of it? And what was your experience on the show?
Oh, I had been aware of it. Yeah, definitely. I was a fan of the show. So it was amazing. I thought a lot of fun. It was pretty cool. I knew that was character was kind of based off of me.
Mhm.
And so I just had fun with it the day on set. They crimped my hair. I remember not being so thrilled about that. But
Said I was a fool. You're a fool. Shut up.
but it was a lot of fun. It was great.
And then you went on the road, and New Kids on the Block opened for you, so which is incredible. So what was that experience like? That going finally out on the road with that?
Oh, I mean, again, it was like I had been touring. I had no opening act. Some people, were saying, let's get a comedian. But what was funny to a 14-year-old isn't funny to a 16-year-old.
Right.
It just didn't work. We had some little openers here and there, but nothing really, was sticking. And then my agent came in. He had just signed the New Kids on the Block. to represent them. And he came backstage, and I had my best friend from school because, you know, if it was summer, my best friend came with me, so I wouldn't be the only minor because I had an older band, of course, and they're playing and then go in the bar, and I'd go upstairs to my room and be bored. So if it was summertime, I'd bring my best friend Sunita with me, and we're backstage having lunch before the show. And here these five guys walk in, and my agent, and he's like, just sign them. They're the new kids on the block. You know, they're going to be out doing some tour. I think this might be a good fit. You know, they'd like to perform for you today. And I was like, sure. And they had the bump box and the whole 9 yards. And they, you know, they did. They performed. And Sunita and I were like, that's cool. And I just knew that my fans, especially the girls, would think they're cute, talented, and the music was very good. And it was a good fit. It felt right. So I literally said, well, you've got all your tracks, and I don't have anybody opening tonight. Do you want to go on tonight? Like, if you're ready. I come from country music, you know, don't forget, where it's, if you want to sing, little girl, you'll sing now on command. There's no let me think about it. There's no you'll shine now. And they rose to the occasion. They were like, okay. And I was like, cool, all right. So my manager wasn't there at the time that I did that. He wasn't on the road with me. And I remember later getting a call, you know, and getting yelled at. You don't make deals like that. You know, that was really stupid for you to do that. There's like contractual stuff. And
Wow.
but to be honest with you, I remember being backstage and just hearing people scream, and they hadn't even had their single really out, and they weren't really famous, and people just were going, and I thought, I've done a good thing. I know that this works, you know. So, and I still feel that way. You know, George's whole thing was, gosh, five guys and you're a girl, and the audience is going to sway, and they're going to maybe turn against you, and you just can't compete against boy bands, which a lot of that is 100% true. But you know, I'm going to see them in a couple of weeks in Las Vegas. They're like family to me.
Mm-hmm.
I love that they've always stayed true to the blockheads and to their fans. And that they're really nice guys, humans. You know, this matters. And so I don't know. There's a lot of times, a lot of people go, you know, well, you're the one who really helped. They might have actually made it on their own. Who knows? But to be a part of it has been very cool.
Yeah.
And you know, I kind of chuckle a lot of times at the old school touring days when we were just kids and hanging out on the bus and singing, you know, and chucking things across the room and having food fights or whatever it was. It really helped me a little bit to be a kid because I was around young people. Other than that, I love my band, but they were way older. I would have had a different experience.
Yeah. And just before we leave the whole mall thing behind, Jonathan, I have a question for you. Was Orange Julius a East Coast thing?
We had Orange Julius, yes, as well.
Okay, good. I
Yes.
was just curious. I don't know why I had to know that. So during a time, there was all the stuff in the media, you know, a lot of it pushing you and Debbie Gibson as rivals. Was there anything behind that, or was that purely media trying to make you guys the original Drake and Kendrick
Well,
Lamar?
pretty much. I mean, you know, I think the labels played into that because it was, you
Hmm.
know, it was good media. We are very different. She was East Coast, I'm West Coast. We're different now. We have a sisterhood together. But, you know, if you were in a room together with us, you'd be like, oh, they are very different. You know, but we celebrate our differences. We kind of chuckle at them a little bit. You know, and I think that's always been there. But there was no rivalry. We didn't even
Yeah.
have time to talk to each other at that time. The first time I really got a chance to know Deb was sitting on set for Mega Python versus Gatoroid,
Oh, and
our
that's
silly sci-fi movie. It was not music that really brought us together. It was doing the movie. We had lots of downtime as they were changing props or locations, and we would sit in the trailer together and chit chat about life and how's it going and what's going on with you. And that was really the first time we had a chance to dig deeper. than the occasional, oh, this hotel's nice. Oh, I hope you have a good time. Oh, they're really lovely here in, Iowa or whatever. We had mutual friends, but we never really got a chance to just hang out. So, sci-fi really it kind of made it all happen for us.
That's very cool.
And we kept
Yeah.
in contact ever since. And now we talk to each other every once in a while, randomly, birthdays. We do make time for each other just as
But
girlfriends now.
yeah, you
That's
two shared
great.
so many of the same experiences. It's like, so much in
Yeah.
common. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to ask is you touched upon it a little bit. So in the late 80s, like you were also one of the first people I remember being in the news for wanting to become an emancipated minor. So what were you dealing with emotionally at that time? Because that had to be like so extremely stressful.
Oh, I mean, it was stressful to be in the household, to be, honest with you. There was a lot going on. I come from, loving people. I love my
Mhm.
family, but, they had made some bad choices. There was a lot of alcohol, and it could get really intense. Not for me. I was never beaten or put in harm's way, but it definitely, between the adults, there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of drama there, that kind of stuff. So it was unstable. It was scary. And, when I got my record deal and I was traveling, to come back home after being on the road and then come home to a chaotic, family again and lifestyle. And it wasn't just my mom and my dad, it was my uncles and my aunts. And
Mhm.
so, my grandfather was an alcoholic. So it was like I didn't really have anywhere to go. And there was a lot of like codependency and, just don't say anything, make them happy. They'll stop drinking, they'll be good. So we covered up a lot. And I just got tired, to be honest with you. I was on the road touring and coming home and just thinking, I can't do all of this. I need to be in a safe place. And this doesn't feel safe,
Right.
and I'm out on the road and I've got people like my label in my ear and people like my manager on my ear who are
Hmm.
saying, you need to be, you be on time and you need to be present and this is your time and we've invested in you. And, I'm only like 15 at the time. So basically, ta-da, be perfect. And I'm thinking, well, I didn't get much sleep last night. There was a lot of
Mm.
arguing. My mom's really upset, like, and I just ended up saying, I want to go live with my dad's mom, my grandmother, my other grandmother. Um, and at that time, my mom was separated from my stepfather, but she was, just getting her footing of being, you know, getting towards a divorce, having small children, not being in the workforce. And for some reason, I was always really the stronger one that she guided to. So losing me or wanting me to be out of the home, she was not comfortable with. And I was not comfortable with being her rock at that time. I was like,
Right.
I'm, I'm just a kid, really. I already now have all this other adult stuff on me where I have to tour the world and I've got people in my ear about, kind of man up and be the perfect pop star. And then I come home and there's just dysfunction and crazy. I just want to go live with my dad's mom, my other grandmother, which she knew and was very close to. But again, it became a battle because my mom didn't want to let me go. So somebody mentioned to me about emancipation, and we saw that. I went and, got an attorney and they explained to me what emancipation was. You'd be like, you looked at it as an adult, although you're a minor. And I really didn't want to be on my own. I wanted to live with my grandmother. And I ended up getting that. I did, didn't get the emancipation per se, the full emancipation, but I
Mhm.
got the right to live with my grandmother, which is what I wanted. Um, but I mean, it was through a lot of heartache and tears. I mean, my mom felt very betrayed.
Mm.
There was, a long time that we didn't really talk, or if we did, it was very strained. I had my sisters who I loved, and I felt a lot of guilt for leaving them. And then there was a lot of battle between seeing them, because it was like manipulation and stuff. I mean, my mom was also going through recovery then and turning, her life around. but a lot of the manipulation that an alcoholic uses are still there, all those coping skills and bad
Right.
habits. And so she was still very much into that. And of course, very much reacted to that. So it took a lot of years, but eventually before my mom passed away, she was sober for many years. We had a repaired relationship. It took me being a mom, and it took her getting to the other side where she could admit her failures and could admit her honesty and could admit that she did the best she could. But yeah, she screwed up a little bit, and she tried to cover it up with denial a lot, making everybody, think that they were crazy. And so when she stopped all of that is when we really had a better relationship. So I'm very grateful about that in the end, we had a really close relationship. She was a great grandmother to my son, and that my family's gotten really healthy now. We don't have these things in our
That's great.
family. Us as girls, we're very close. I moved all my sisters to Nashville. We hover over each other, and there's really, there's no alcoholism. There's none of that. We're very close family now, so it's fulfilling for me to see that it's
Yeah.
turned around.
Yeah, not that you wouldn't have been a great parent anyway, but this only helps you become
Yes.
a better parent. Because yeah, a lot of us have lived
Yeah.
that same thing, you know. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Kudos to
You know,
you. I tip
with
my hat.
Elijah, my son, he's a structural engineer now. And,
Ah,
I tried, my biggest thing was, touring. I was always, obviously still in the music industry, but I did try to stay home and do kid stuff with him, be available throughout the school year, only tour in the summer, because this was my choice of my life, but that
mhm.
doesn't mean that it was his. So I tried to live that balance for a long time until he got older and he was in high school, and then I started working my career more. But when he was a kid, I did regular mom stuff on field trips and all that, just PTA, all of it. I mean, he wasn't thrilled about it, but I was.
Right,
He was like, "You're coming? What do you mean?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm coming to your PTA. I'm part of
right.
the thing."
That's good on
He's
you
an
though, but good
introvert.
on
He is
you.
not an extrovert.
Right. I'm a parent, but even before I was a parent, I felt brotherly or fatherly to like say for Fergie, actually I did a show with for 5 years before she became huge, you know, and
Yeah.
always like I always have this like instinctual, and I'm feeling it when you were telling me about when you're young, like just want to protect these people because it could have gone so many ways, and you came out on the other end of it. And career wise, you're booking tours, you seem totally grounded, and I tip my cap, with
Well,
from
thank you.
all the
That
things
was
you
Kids
went through.
Incorporated, wasn't it?
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stacy.
Well, here's the funny thing. I was an extra and a dancer on that for one or two.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Say what?
Say what? I was just a dancer in the background with one of the,
No
yeah.
kidding. So
I was
I
so,
was
yeah.
on the first 5 seasons. Was it within the first 5 seasons?
I think so. Yeah, the show had just started.
Oh
Oh,
yeah. So
wow.
you,
Before I got my record deal, and again, my parents not knowing anything about Hollywood, I did it all. I went to modeling classes and acting
Oh,
classes, dance
yeah.
classes, and all of that. And I took class with Jason Bateman. I mean, all of it. I was like in there. We
Cool.
used to go on cold reads, and it was like me and Ricky Martin and Mario Lopez and
Yeah.
all these people. Gosh, and now look, it's so funny because I look back at all these people and I go, gosh, everybody kind of made it. We
Yeah.
all became kind of successful. There wasn't one person in my troupe of, again, going on auditions and seeing everybody. I just wasn't a Hollywood kid. I went back to East LA. So my parents didn't really know each other. And,
Uh-huh.
I didn't go to the same high schools or any of that jazz. But, it was the same people always. I was like, and we used to have pizza parties and like
that's
Melora
great.
Hardin. I went to Diane Hardin's,
I
acting
just
class. And,
got together with her the other day. Melora is fantastic.
oh,
And
I
yeah, so
tell her I said hi.
I will. There's something about like you all went on to great success because
Yeah.
I don't know, you just kind of people like that cling together,
Well, there was something, the one thing I can say about it, it was, there was a determination in us.
Mm-hmm.
We were really enjoying it. And it was like, we just wanted to do it. So
Yeah.
I never was around anybody that was like, oh, I really don't want to do this. And oh, my parents are making me do this. They were like, I'm here and I'm present and I'm ready for this role. And, and I'm excited and da 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 da. And there was very positive
Yeah.
attitude. And then you had the support of parents. Now, my mom wasn't somebody who used to drive me down, or my dad. I had a girl named Jane Bieber in my life. And she would take me to all of my acting lessons and things. So I did have that support. My real father got involved for a second, and he started taking me around. But again, he's the one who didn't really want me in the industry.
Mhm.
But eventually he got involved. And it was just a lot on my family to come all the way from Norwalk, California, fight traffic, be available, not go to work, because of course they're working, to be, on auditions at 2, 3, 4, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's expensive as well. So eventually my family just kind of said, pick one. And I was like, well, that would be singing, and that's kind of how that narrowed itself down.
Yeah. You could have done both. You could have been on Kids Incorporated, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not doing the math on the age, and I promise you, if I knew what episode you were an extra in clapping along, I will air
my
that
gosh.
clip on this right now if there's any way to find out. Anyway, but moving on. So another project you did, you were Judy Jetson, not
Yes.
the original Hanna-Barbera one,
No,
right?
I did the
You're too
voice
young
the
for that.
movie.
for the movie. Such a cool experience. I mean, when I got the phone call, I was like, yes. I mean, because I grew up watching the Jetsons. So
Yeah.
that was a big, big deal for me. And just to go into the studio, I'd never done any voiceover work before. So I was so nervous. But again, there was that, yes, I want to do this. This is great. And yeah, and I loved it when the movie came out. I went to the drive-in. I took my sisters. We didn't have a big premiere or anything like that. So I took my sisters and we went to the drive-in and we watched it for the very first time on the drive-in screen.
Ooh, that cosmic Cosmo. I'll never trust another boy ever again.
And it was anticlimactic really, because nobody knew who I was and these cars around me or anything, but my sisters did. And we
That's
had a
so cool.
really good time. We were eating popcorn. I'm like, this is cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And there's some sort of irony about when we were kids and watched the Jetsons, and they would talk on the TV screen, seeing each other. And we're like, yeah, that'll never happen. And here we are right this second.
Right?
Yeah.
How
Okay.
many things are like that actually
Right.
nowadays,
Yeah.
right?
I hope we don't have flying cars, though. I think that what can go wrong, right, with the way people drive?
I hope we continue to have people at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. On that note,
I mean, especially in the music industry, with a lot of
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
changing, I'm
right.
like, it's nice to have live performances and people and, let's add to, not take
Right.
away.
Yeah. 100%. So I'm going to ask you about another a reality show you did, Hulk Hogan Celebrity Wrestling, and some of the other contestants were uh, Dennis Rodman, Todd Bridges, Danny Bonaducci, Aaron Murphy. That sounds familiar. Can you talk about your experience with that and what it was like?
My stepfather was very impressed with that. The one thing, like, going back a little bit, even though my stepdad was helping me in my career, we didn't really get on. Because again, going back to my mom's alcohol, I always thought that he was the problem. So, and there was a lot of like openness about the arguments and stuff. So I just thought, well, he's upset her. So I took a lot on my stepfather to like hate him. And he was very strict. He'd never raised a child before and all of that. So we didn't have a very good relationship. But the one thing that we did was go to WrestleMania. We went to wrestling all the time. At it, gosh, it was the LA Forum at the time.
Mhm.
And he would, Friday night, Saturday, whatever, and he would take us all down there. And I could always have 2 or 3 friends with me. And I loved wrestling. Like, it was really cool. So, when I said I was going to do the Hulk Hogan show, my dad was like, "What?" And I knew it would make him so happy because by that time we're friends and we've made up and everything. But he was so proud of me. I think that was one of his proudest moments. He was like, "You're doing what?" And he was like, "Tell Rodman I said hello." I'm like, "Well, Dad, he doesn't really know who you are, and he doesn't even really know who I am, but he is approachable. So if I get the opportunity to say hello, or, I mean, because we are on the floor together, but you just never know if somebody's gonna get on or not, or what they're gonna be like. So eventually I did tell Dennis, I said, "Oh, my dad's a real
Oh,
big
great.
fan. Do you mind taking a picture?" And that whole, and he was like, "Sure." And the same thing with, Hulk Hogan. I got a photo with him for my dad, and my dad wanted to come down to set, but then he ended up having to do something work and couldn't do it. So
Oh,
that was something that he brought up quite often. I wish I would have come. But yeah, that was a great show to be a part of. And of course,
Yeah.
my girl Erin.
Yeah. Aaron talks to me about the training on that show, and it was more than what
Yeah.
people would think. It's
Yeah, and I remember, I mean, I jumped off the ropes at one point, and they gave you strict instructions of how to do it, and I landed wrong, and I
oh,
landed on my back, and it was like, whoa, it took the breath out of me and everything. I saw a little bit of stars because I kind of hit the back of my head a little bit, and I
right.
was like, whoa, yeah, you could get hurt. Like
sure.
this hurts. I didn't last very long on the show, but I'm a tomboy, so I love that kind of stuff. It was a
Yeah.
great experience.
Well, I do want to ask about a couple of other reality shows. One that you did, which I love, was I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Yeah.
Just how tough are those to do? Because you don't know anyone that they're putting you into, and you have to like kind of live with them. So how tough is that?
Well, I made really good friends, Jackie Gillies and Shannon Knoll. They are still my friends. I love them. They're awesome. And it was a time in my life where I was totally out of my element because, I mean, I flew to South Africa. Even though it's an Australian show, they actually take you out of Australia because most of the cast is really familiar with the terrain there. So they
Hmm.
totally take them out of their element and take them to South Africa. So, um, I've never been that far, and you don't fly with your crew, you don't have your manager,
Right.
I had one person fly with me to Johannesburg and drop me, and then I got on small planes. I don't fly. So that was like the first challenge. I remember getting to the, first landing zone where we were catching another flight and calling my agent and going, "Well, I guess I live here now because I'm never getting on a plane again." That was horrifying, like scary, because we got up in the clouds and I guess it was so foggy they couldn't land. And now we're just like around this barren land. I mean, there was nothing there, it's just desert. And we were going around and around. And I'm like, it figures, it's my luck. So I really didn't want to get on that next flight, but I did. And I got to, to land in the hotel, and they send the counselor over. But they do that a lot on reality anyway to check how you doing because you're about to
Right.
like, walk on cliffs and jump out of whatever aircraft or whatever. So they want to just
Wow.
make sure you're a little okay. And I said, no, I'm really scared. I'm really frightened. So we talked about the flight a little bit, and then the next day I showed up and they do your hair and makeup and everything. That's the day that I met Shannon and Jackie. And they, do the big scene coming in and they're following you, and there's big ocean that was beautiful. The ocean was there, and then they had like where the river meets the ocean. And I saw canoes like in the back, but I just thought it was a shot, I was like, oh, this is pretty. And I come in with all my dress on and my hair all done, and they're like, all right, and it's Tiffany, and this is the first team, and da. And then, that was it. They took that and they're like, okay, so now we're going to get you ready and we're going to get into our water gear. And I'm all, why? And they're like, oh, no, we're shooting that today. We're going to jump off this bridge. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, like now, we're
Hmm.
going to do this now. And I just, for some reason, was like, I'm not ready for this. So when we went up to the bridge, I literally just said, I have to do it first. If I don't do it first, I'm going to chicken out.
Yeah.
And I did. I
Mm.
almost went head first, and then it was like I pulled myself back because again, that can be really dangerous. They
Sure.
walk you through, they do, but your adrenaline is so crazy. And I ended up again landing on my back in that water, and I was bruised from
Oh,
my ankles up. It was very, again, it really scared me. But you're just living off of adrenaline. You're just like, it didn't scare me from not wanting to get back on set. But, I just was like, this is no joke. I mean, I'm
yeah.
in the jungle with
Yeah.
real life
Hmm.
baboons, with real snakes, with real spiders here. You have to watch your back. And there was very
Yeah.
challenging days. The trials were really, you were really hungry. I did a lot of cooking on the show. I think they showed a few episodes. I did, the cooking, but I did most of the cooking really.
Hmm.
And it was, hard. We were like on 800 calories.
Wow.
And if
Wow.
somebody didn't win food, you were like, oh my gosh, let's cook these soybeans and stuff and let's have it ready because there's some angry people up in here.
Well,
Yeah,
um,
so I mean, you bonded, right? That
sure.
show for everybody, I think maybe because it was so raw. Again, a lot of reality shows we had, you still have like your handlers. No, they were totally on camera watching us. No one stepped in. They let it play out. If you were, God forbid, really got hurt, then they'd come in. They had a team of people ready to do that. But up until then, they weren't there for the whiners. They just let you do your thing and solve the problem. And, we had to work together. And I think those were some of the best
Yeah.
friendships that I still have, still made.
You did Mass Singer in the UK. So I want to hear about it because you were incredible. And do you find it cathartic, like in a way, just to be able to sing without expectations from anyone, just to that they hear the voice without knowing who you are?
It's the first time I've ever performed with anything on a mask over my face or any obstruction where I couldn't really work off the audience.
Yeah.
So I found that challenging because I am such a hands-on performer. I look you in the eye, I get the energy from the audience, I touch hands, I do all of that. And that was not an option. So the first day I kind of panicked a little bit. I didn't know, if I could breathe in there. And I was like, okay, calm down. It's mesh. You can breathe in here. You've worked with material before. This is ridiculous. Stop tripping. The costume wasn't overly heavy so I could move. I
Hmm.
loved how Eiffel lit up. So every time they plugged me in and light up, I was like grinning under there. I was like, this is really pretty. And I loved her hand movements and, it's just a different side of me. So yeah, it was a great experience for me. I think I, again, grew as a performer because I had to really work off of feeling the audience's vibe and really just delivering that vocal, enjoying it for myself more than anything.
Yeah.
Which was hard because a lot of times we change songs on the fly. And I would go home that night and I'd be in my bathtub. And I always rehearse in pools or bathtubs. There's a thing about water for me, the connection. But that's probably because when I was a little girl, I used to sing and splash around in the bathtub for hours. And I always got busted. I'd always have to clean it up. But I love bubble baths. So I would go home and I'd sit in the hotel and I'd put on my bubble bath and then I would start singing and working the material until I felt comfortable with it. And you try to find your own space within somebody's song because, the original artist, especially the songs I sang, I really love those artists. So I was like, oh God, I don't want to screw this up, and how can you make it better? They're pretty good. Like, you know, um, and then you'd get on set and they get you at 10 in the morning and you don't really do anything till 6. And that's like the worst for me
Hmm.
because I'm much more of a get out of the van to stage person. I don't like to sit around. It's dead energy for me. A couple minutes, that's fine. But I don't like to get to venues a half an hour or 40 minutes before and sit there. It's just not my thing. I'm much more like, okay, let's go do it. And so sitting there all day having that energy. A lot of the, you have your handlers and the production would come back and they'd be like, your room is so zen in here. Because I'd have my and on my sage going and my oils on, and I just have all this going on. And they were like, you're so chill. And I was like, if you only knew inside, I don't remember my name. I'm not remembering the lyrics. I think I'm leaving my body.
Okay,
And you kept away with
I
it
was
from
a
everyone else.
mess.
Right?
this
And
is
you kept
crazy
away from
because
everyone. Yeah.
I think I talked about this yesterday for a moment. So we went to see you perform, right? And we're hanging out in your dressing room before you go on. And you were all about whatever anyone else was up to and not about you, and you're preparing for your show. I'm like, this girl's relaxed. And then you get out there. I'm not saying this is not an obligatory statement. You're vocally really good.
Well, people
And
don't know. I mean, they come to a Tiffany show and they're like, well, I've even had people go, for a long time I didn't buy a ticket because, I really only know a few songs of yours and I
Mhm.
didn't really buy an album. And I thought, what's she gonna sing? I think we're alone now over and over and over again. And,
Right.
and then you come out and you're doing this new material and oh my God. And I'm like, well, great. I'm glad to have you in my family. Welcome to Tiff World, So
Yeah.
it's not an insult to me. It's something again, I hope that's the response. I hope that people go, she can sing.
No,
I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, she is comfortable performing. She's funny. She just kind of does her thing. So I
right.
mean, as long as people feel comfortable, that's
Mhm.
my goal in a performance, really.
Yeah, two things. Let's be honest. There have been artists that like are so overly produced, especially back in the 80s or 90s, they're just so like overly produced, like I said. And then live, they're like, oh, okay, you're a vocalist. Like you can sing, and I really mean that. And another thing is when we come to see you at the whiskey, now I know you prefer to have Zen before the show. We're not going to show.
Oh, no, no, no. No, I mean, I really am like, I do my Zen all throughout the day. That's just
Mm-hmm.
something that I have to taught myself.
Oh,
People
good.
be like, "Where'd she go?" And I'm like, I'm over in the corner, just like, I do it all the time. And then before a show, I don't mind meeting people. I don't mind giving family hugs and stuff. It really, we just had a show here in the UK, and a lot of my fiance's family was there, and they were just like, "You're like." Serving us drinks and like making sure that our purses are safe and like weird stuff. And you're about to hit the stage. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's just what I do. I mean, but I want to make
Right.
sure your purse is okay and you have drinks. And then I just kind of walk out there and they're like, you're not, you're not like in a space or a zone or closing yourself off. I said, well, no, I mean, if it's something like Mass Singer, yes. I couldn't really have people in my face. I was doing other people's material, songs that I, know, but I don't know like every night.
Mhm.
And it's one take live, so don't screw it up.
Right.
I'm in a mask, it's like a lot of stuff. So I was like, yeah, I just need to like, hone in. And focus a little bit. I was very, like I said, very zen, but kind of nervous inside. And I remember when I sang Angels, which is one of my favorite songs, and I was on the podium and I thought I was gonna pass out. I just was
Oh,
so nervous. I was like, don't pass out, don't pass out, don't pass out. Just sing. Just sing, Tiffany.
Right.
It's not that hard. Just sing. Just sing to yourself. It's fine. And I started singing, and then by the last note, I was like, I think that went well. I don't know. I felt like it went really well. And then you hear the clapping and so I kind of felt relieved and I felt, like I think I sang well. And then when I saw the YouTube, I was like, yeah, I did it. But with a live show, a lot of times I just work off the audience. You never know what you're gonna get.
Right.
It's a lot of fun, actually.
I bet. I bet. What a challenge not to be able to feed off of them when you did the Masked Singer. So, great segue too. I want to ask you about Let's Zen, my friend.
Yes.
Tell us what that's about.
So Let's End My Friend is my new company. I've got an
Hmm.
Instagram and a Facebook going on, and we're doing private retreats, little events We have our first one here in the UK, March 8th.
Mm.
I've partnered with a lot of people from the America side to the UK side, Creative Well here on this side. And we're bringing, awareness for mental health, stress relievers, holistic medicine. As I'm traveling along the world, I'm learning how to stay in the game, how to handle
Mhm.
stress,
Mhm.
how to, feel rejuvenated, how to handle whatever it is. I do a lot of Chinese medicine. And I thought, I'm learning a lot of cool things and I'm learning a lot of life things that I just want to expose my fans to who don't have a chance to get on a plane or maybe the money to go to these, special practitioners. I think this is really interesting and, it's very practical. And it's really a matter of your time. It's not an expensive thing. And it'd be cool to have a community of like-minded people that I bring together that, are at the tip of your fingers through Instagram of what I'm posting. And then to do some events that are very community based. I have a lot of friends myself in Nashville who it's not like LA, they live out in the fields and they've got kids or their kids are, in college now and they're just trying a different way of their life and they're like, "Oh, I don't really have anybody to go yoga with, and I'm not somebody that does it by myself, and my
Mhm.
husband doesn't want to support that." And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if I was the facilitator of bringing people together in the community where people are gathering already in their community, meeting friends of like mind who might want to do yoga. You're meeting the yoga teacher, you're meeting the Reiki teacher, you're learning some of the practice right there. Rather that just be deep breathing. Some of us forget to breathe, but it sounds ridiculous. But what it does to the body, what it does to the nervous system, what it does just to calm your mind sometimes. We do a lot of other things. We drink alcohol, we freak out, we cry, and all of those things can be okay within moderation, but sometimes just breathing, just really cleansing the body, sometimes just stretching and letting that energy out and getting that extra irritation and other people's energy that you've collected. You don't know what it is. For a long time, I didn't know what that was for me, but I collect people's energies.
Mhm.
And, for me, I'd be like, I can't relax, and especially even after the performance, I can't relax. So deep breathing, magnesium soaks for me, acupuncture for me, all of these different things have really helped me, especially struggling from long COVID now. So I, flare up. I have like, arthritis now,
Mm.
probably would have had it later on in my life because it runs in my family, but here it is now.
Yeah.
And I have these flare-ups. So I'm learning about, the anti-inflammation diet. And it's just a way to share at these events some knowledge. And again, meeting of like mind, building this community. So I'm gonna do, some podcasting where I actually interview some people. And but the thing that I have is I go all over the world. So for me, I'm very much into Chinese medicine. I'm very much into, holistic healing. I'm very much into, non-processed food because for so long on the road, I've had to eat whatever, you do. But it catches up with you. So, there's that food connection for me. Pop Life, of course, is reworking 80s food, but we've done
Sure.
it in a more health conscious way as well.
Well, you have Pop Life. You also have the Let's Food with Tiffany. So, yeah,
I
first
do.
of all, are you a foodie in general? Can you tell us about those?
I am a foodie in general. I'm a foodie, foodie, foodie. Yeah, I mean, that started early on. I mean, my heritage, Lebanese,
Mhm.
Scottish, German, raised in East LA. My family was, from Oklahoma, so a lot of good Southern food. Everybody was a great cook, and it was all the heart of the family is in the kitchen. That's where everybody gathered. So I was always raised like that. And when I started to travel as a young girl, I would bring back pictures and I would say, oh gosh, this is what India's like. But not having any Indian friends or again, maybe Indian restaurants in our area, my parents would be like, oh, I don't know what that is, what is that like? So it was really cool because they let me go to the grocery store and try to just get stuff and replicate the meals. And I was always asking questions, even when I was little. I was like, what does this have in this? Oh, it has coconut milk. Oh, okay. I've never had coconut milk. What is that? And I would like take notes and then I would go home and try to find coconut milk or something. And I would put these dishes together. And it was like a fun thing that my grandmothers and my mom let me do. And they would try these foods and they'd be like, oh, I get it. It's very earthy. Oh, yeah. Oh gosh, that's different. I was like, yeah, like their music is like that. And then like, the fragrances are like that. And that's just what the city's like, because you can
Hmm.
smell the food cooking and it paints a picture. And it still does. I really do believe that food and music connect people. That,
Oh,
it's a
Yeah.
very fun thing to be a part of. So I do TIFF takeovers, which is again, you know, my music, acoustic music, and hosting one of my pop tails or,
Yeah.
some of the appetizers. I also have my own spice blends out now. So we can do a
Jeez.
lot of different stuff.
You think?
So yeah, I mean, I'm really going in heavy for the food stuff, but it's been something I've wanted to do for a while. And then the
Yeah.
opportunity to do a cookbook came up. And I thought that would be fun. So Chef Alicia in Vegas, she's just burning up the boulevard, literally, doing a lot of things that I aspire to do. She's my mentor. But she's a proper chef. So you get a little high end, and then you get the foodie love from me, and you get travel photos and stories of the band, and just a little bit of a different side of Tiffany.
That's awesome. What's a magnesium soak? Or what
Oh
what is
gosh.
that?
So they're called floats. You can find them. They're that's what I call them. That's what I've, booked. So it's a magnesium pool and you get in there and you lay in there. You can lay for, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And of course it goes through your skin. So it's this quickest way to intake the magnesium, which is it's very calming. I mean, for me, when I'm off the road and I only have a couple of days, I run there. I run to acupuncture and magnesium soak.
Right.
And it just really does a lot for my personal anxiety, nervous system.
Yeah.
And I just feel really like I'm grounded, calm. So, and it's a lovely, usually they put like colors,
hmm.
and they put the Zen music or the frequency music, whatever you want to choose. It depends
Yeah.
on the location you go to. And I soak for 45 minutes, and I tell you, I feel so peaceful for literally before 5 days. It just completely calms my entire body down. It's like a
Right.
rejuvenation treatment.
You have a new album coming out at the end of this year. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I do. We're doing an album actually. So we're doing a couple of different things in TIFF World. The
Mm-hmm.
cookbook has two new songs that we're debuting for Children's Miracle Network charity. So there is going to be a full album around that. So these are brand new songs. And if you get the cookbook, you get the download as well. So we're really excited about that. And then following that up, the actual album, we don't have a title yet for that. But we're going to be, probably bringing that out about June when we have all the copies ready for signing for the Pop Life Cookbook. So they go hand in hand together. And then at the end of that year, we're going to start doing some greatest hits. So I've been working on that for a while. I've recorded a lot. And now over the Christmas holiday, in live situation, we've started to change some of them and slow some songs down, some B-sides that I never get a chance to perform. And now it's like, oh, well, hold on, maybe we want to go back and record this. So we're really going to have fun on the Christmas holiday, just going back into the studio. So the album's not done yet, but it will be coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But we might have extra versions now
Oh,
of,
cool.
particular songs just because, we've done a slowdown. I think we're alone now, and it's a great song, and I've done it so many different ways. And of course, everybody loves to party to it. But Slow Down with piano is really sad. And you tap into something different on this song that I'm now noticing in my live shows. So, I think we're going to go back and do a version on that as well.
Oh,
Love that.
cool. Well, here's the important question that everyone wants to make sure that gets asked. How can people follow you on social media?
Oh, tiffanytunes.com for all things Tiff World, and Tiffany Tunes on Instagram, and Tiffany on Facebook. So yes, we are there. Enjoy my Patreon if you're interested. Whole different side. Get all the backstory. With the band and all kinds of other blurbs and bloopers and all kinds of things on Patreon. But a lot of stuff in the studio, a lot of the raw organic stuff that we're doing. We film it all and put it up there, so you're really in my world day to day. The Instagram stuff is cool. We try to keep it a little more polished, but it's definitely, I love Patreon because it's really a place that I can feel that I can just be me, whenever we want to turn on the camera with the band, or we're working out a song, or if you're interested in, seeing the process of us writing and, just figuring it out, that's the place to go.
You're a champion. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Always been a big fan. It was such a pleasure getting to speak with you today.
Well, thank you. I hope to see you guys very soon when I come
We'll
to
see you
LA.
Whiskey a
Hold
Go
on,
Go
look.
on
Let
Sunset
me sign us
Boulevard.
off. I'll sign us off now. So
Okay.
again, this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier. And again, a very special thanks to Tiffany. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.